Journaling is extremely powerful. It's a structured way for you to check in with yourself and externalize your thoughts and feelings. It coaxes you into finding the words to describe the abstract state of your mind, and in that process, you become familiar with yourself, how you think, how you behave, who you are, and who you want to be. I've been journaling daily for a little over a year, and in that time, it's become a crucial pillar of my mental health. It's helped me identify and remedy bad habits and work through some tough emotional times. But it also has given me a place to externalize my appreciation for the good things in life and give myself credit and celebrate my own accomplishments, big and small. I could go on about journaling forever, and I really do recommend it for everyone, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about photo journaling. A few weeks ago, I saw a post on Blue Sky about photo journaling, and the concept just really appealed to me. I really like the idea of having a place to put and physically peruse a curated selection of my own photos. Not quite as manicured as a scrapbook, just a simple way of having a physical, visual timeline of my life. The process I arrived at is the culmination of a lot of research, and I'm really happy with the end result. As is the case with every video I make, I'm making this because this is the kind of video I was looking for but couldn't find. Now this video is here, and apparently you found it. I hope you find it instructive, and if, at the end, you'd like to share your thoughts or feelings in the comments, I'd love to hear what you think. I'm going to break this video up into a few different sections based on what I think people might be interested in. I know personally I love when videos have chapters that you can skip around, so this will be one of those. If a particular section interests you, watch it and hopefully you'll glean some information out of that. And if not, skip to the one that you're really looking for. First off, I'm going to go over the equipment I use in my journaling, specifically photo journaling, but journaling more broadly because the journal itself is kind of the core part of that process. First off, the most obvious part is the journal itself. This is the journal that I've been using for about a year. This is a Rhodia lined A5 wire-bound notepad. I just picked up a new one. Should be starting on this new one sometime soon, probably within the next week or two, which is exciting. I just have it on hand because I never know how much I'm going to write in any given day. These are a little bit over $8 a piece. Similar prices online. I bought this at a local art supply shop. It's about the size of a large paperback. The top wire binding is really nice. For me, I find that it lets me use like really end to end, side to side of every single page, front and back. And this one's particularly nice because every page, it's always like pretty flat to the table. You know, you never have that bump up here. And it's held up really well. Like I said, I've had this particular notebook for about a year of pretty much daily use, and that spiral has held up extremely well. I've been throwing it in and out of various bags over the course of that year, and you know, again, no issues. I can't really stick a pen in there. If you had a thinner pen, I guess maybe you could get away with it, but for me, that's not the case. I also find this page size to be a good sweet spot between having enough space to write comfortably and kind of filling pages up and progressing through the notebook itself at a noticeable rate. I typically seem to fill about one side of a page per day, sometimes more, sometimes less, but I think typically about one side of a page, or maybe a little short of that, is what I do in the day. So, you know, with 80 pages, that's about 160 days out of a single notebook, and that's a good length of time, but not so long that it's like, oh, I've had this notebook for 2 years and I'm still working on the same one. I also like decorating the outside of my notebook with whatever stickers or what have you that I get from varying events, or, you know, merch stickers that I get with, you know, games or things like that. And I think that's just a nice way to personalize it, and it's also a nice vehicle for stickers. I never know where to put stickers, so journal it is. Last thing to note about this is that the paperweight is pretty nice. It's not so thick as to make the journal itself extremely thick, but it's 21.3 pound, I believe, which is thick enough where you can write with a fountain pen without bleeding through on every single page. That brings me to my next piece of equipment, the Platinum Preppy. This is a great entry-level fountain pen. It writes great. It's very low cost. It's about $7 or $8, so it's not a big deal if you break it or lose it. It is customizable in that you can change out the ink cartridges so you can get different color, or you can even change out the ink cartridge for a converter and then fill it from bottle ink if you wanted to. In general, fountain pens are easier on the hands, and there's a ton of variety between pen bodies, ink, nibs. There's a deep rabbit hole there that I've only glanced down, but if you think that sounds interesting, there's a whole world to explore. I'm not even really recommending anything in this video in general. I'm just explaining my tools and my process and how I arrived at them. The bottom line is that journaling is a personal craft, and you should use whatever tools that will make it the best possible experience for you. For a writing utensil, if that's a fountain pen or a gel pen, ballpoint, mechanical pencil, number 2, whatever. It's whatever feels good to you in the moment. Getting into the more photo-related elements of my equipment, the first piece I'll talk about here is a paper trimmer. I personally use this Fiskars precision paper trimmer. This one is a bit oversized for this particular task, but I got it with more general use cases in mind. It was about $34, and it's pretty nice. A lot nicer and easier to line up than some of the cheaper generic paper trimmers I've had in the past, but most importantly, it has replacement blades available. If you have a generic trimmer, once these go bad, you're kind of SOL. The next piece of kit here is this guy. This is a Sunstar Kadomaru Pro Corner Punch. I bought this a few years ago for another project where I was attempting to make custom domed case badge magnets. And it's kind of sat mostly unused for a while, but since I've gotten into photojournaling, it's become something I use nearly daily to the point where it just lives on my desk now. It has 3 different corner radii, 3, 5, and 8 millimeter, and I tend to switch between them a lot depending on the photo size, shape, and the overall vibe. This particular punch feels almost amusingly premium for what it is, and there are cheaper options out there, but it's only like $14, so it's not exactly breaking the bank. Next, I want to talk about this Zig Photo Signature Pen. This was about $6 and is, in my opinion, an essential tool for this whole process. For writing on the backs of these prints, I've tried using various pens, felt tip markers, Sharpies, what have you, and everything seems to smudge or just never dry, with the exception of this. Sharpies seem to work well on the backs and borders of Instax prints, and I can't really speak for ZINK prints, but I can definitely say if you buy a 4-pass printer, buy one of these pens to go with it. Not super exciting, but it's also worth mentioning transparent tape. I just use Scotch brand transparent tape, but I don't think the specifics are important here. It just has to be tape that is going to work well with your photos and your journal paper. And maybe your ink would also be a factor there. Finally, we're going to get to this, the Kodak Mini 2 portable photo printer. So this prints about 2 by 3 inch photos, and in terms of quality, sometimes they're surprisingly good, but just as often they're kind of low contrast or streaky. The physical properties of the prints, the thickness and the laminated texture, and especially once the corners are punched, give a cozy old postcard aesthetic, which can be aided by this sometimes odd look of the prints. Now, I did a lot of research before I landed on a Kodak 4-pass printer. There's really three options, it seems, in terms of these mini portable Bluetooth connectable phone photo printers. There is Kodak 4-pass, which is going to be like the Mini 2 series. I think that pretty much covers all your options there. There might be another form factor other than 2x3. I'm not entirely sure. ZINK, which is like zero ink, and Fujifilm Instax. ZINK is the main direct competitor to Kodak's 4-pass. The cost per print is slightly more, typically around 45 cents to 55 cents per print at the time of recording. From the research I've done, 4-pass seems to have higher quality, more accurate, more consistent prints, but there's not a lot of rigorous direct comparisons out there. Zinc paper is also adhesive backed, which I thought I would prefer, but after working with the Mini 2, I think I prefer the lack of adhesive backing on the 4-pass prints, but I'll talk about that more a little bit later. Fujifilm makes Instax Mini link printers that connect to your phone and print directly on Instax Mini film. In terms of print quality and fidelity, there's an argument to be made that this is the best option, albeit at a much higher cost per print, about $1.14. But beyond the cost of Instax Mini film, I've got beef. For one, Instax photos shouldn't be cut. Instant film is basically a thin pouch of chemicals that you don't want to release for your health and safety. For the Instax Mini link, this ultimately means that you either only get one photo per print, or you get a strange collage that kind of breaks the illusion of instant camera photography. This illusion is honestly my bigger beef with the Instax Mini link. I personally love analog photography. I've even included some Instax Mini photos in my journal. But at the very essence of analog photography is commitment. There's no undo. There's no infinite camera roll. You get what you get when you hit the shutter button, and therein lies the magic. Each shot is precious, so you really have to stay vigilant and have the confidence to strike when the moment's right. An Instax printer for digital photos feels completely antithetical to that. Some people just want the aesthetic without the process, and that's fine, but it's just really not for me. Your final option really is to get a more expensive, larger desktop photo printer that'll give you much better prints, but that's an entirely different beast, and for me, for this, feels like overkill. In my opinion, you don't need high quality prints, especially not for photojournaling, where you are your own audience. But in general, the fact that you've printed something on a printer like this means that you have the original digital copy. It doesn't get better than that in terms of fidelity. Okay, so let's go through my process. On days when I print photos, which I try to do every day, but it's not every day, I usually like to try to have 2 photos to print. And they don't just have to be photos. Sometimes they're screenshots, sometimes they're art, sometimes they're photos that other people take, group photos and things like that. And I just have them send it to me. Regardless, I'll open them up in the Kodak printer app. And the most straightforward way to print things out would be to select a photo. So for example, I'll take this one of my cat, add it in print. And since I want to print 2 photos, I can go up here, hit edit, collage. I can do side by side. So I want to rotate that one so we get more of a full picture. Then I want to add another photo. So I'm going to take this picture of the filming setup for this video. This gets a little odd with square format photos and different weird aspect ratios. If you want to like fully utilize the space, it does get a little messy, and I have found that it's easier to go into another program and make a collage and then print that collage rather than making the collage within the Kodak app. I've most recently done that using GIMP on a computer and then sent the pictures back to my phone. I haven't found a super convenient way to do it on my phone in a way that I have like full control. You can do it through Google Photos, but even then you don't have like full control. You can't just say, oh, give me 2 images side by side, no border, no outline, anything like that. So that's definitely something that I'm looking for a solution to kind of make easier, especially because I've been shooting in square format a lot recently. But the most basic version of it is do the collage within the Kodak app. Once you have everything arranged the way you'd like, hit your check mark, and then we got to make sure that we connect to our printer. So we can connect to it. It connects over Bluetooth. And then we just hit print. It definitely takes a while to print, and that is a complaint that I've seen compared to ZINK printers. Those tend to print a lot faster. I think Instax Mini link prints are also extremely fast. But the 4-pass technology literally requires 4 passes of printing. I guess the final pass is laminating, but all right. And there we have it. It's definitely a little soft, a little low contrast. You can see kind of there's like a streak. You know, so like I said before, it's not perfect, but it has its own look, and that can kind of have its own appeal. I've only actually ever had one print fail on me, and that was this one, where it printed just the first pass, the yellow pass, and it looks like it got kind of stuck on the magenta pass, and then it just ejected and said to reseat the photo paper cartridge. So that was kind of strange. I don't know if it got obstructed or as it was coming out, it got caught on something. I didn't notice anything like that, but it's possible. All right, so now that we have our photo printed, we can just turn this off and tuck it away. I usually just keep it here next to the table on my desk. And then we can get to trimming the photos. Thankfully, this does print completely side to side, so you don't have to worry about any trimming along the long end. You just have to trim the borders off. And there we go. So now that we have these printed, we can trim the corners. So I like to kind of take the top here and see what feels right for the size of the photo based on that, because these are like true to scale. And I think for this one, I like the small radius. I think that'll look nice. I'll do it backwards so it's better for the camera. We just insert the corner. Make sure it's flat and lined up on the sides. Not bunched in there. There's our first punch. That looks a lot cooler in my opinion. Now we do the other one. So for these photos, the way that I put them in the notebook is I just use a single piece of tape on the top. That allows me to flip up and use all of the space to write above and below the photo. But when I flip up, I want to be able to read the text. So I always write the text kind of upside down relative to the front of the photo. So in case a photo ever falls out, or I just want to use it in a different context or something like that, I always like to put the date. So I'm going to put today's date. This one's just my cat Danny. I don't know, something simple. Hearts. Boxes. And we can see, like, already that's not smudging. If you did that with any other pen other than that Zig signature, it's gonna smudge. Any Sharpie I've tried, any pen I've tried, it's always smudging. But this pen is black magic, I guess. It's also very, like, dark. The text is very dark on it, which I like. So let's just do this one. Photo journaling, video. Shoot. Nice. So how do we place those in the journal? Just for example, we'll use the new journal to kind of get an idea. So typically I just write, like, again, I'll write like the date. Usually I write the time too, give some context as to what's happening in the day. And then I just go on, talk about, you know, how I'm feeling today, what I'm planning on doing today, what I did tomorrow, how I feel about that. Things like that. Sometimes it feels kind of regimented, sometimes it feels kind of loose in structure. I just kind of do whatever feels good, you know? And I always end my journal entries with good luck, have fun, and keep on keeping on. And then the next day, you know, I write a line under that. That gives me kind of some clearance if I want to write more later in the day. That doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does, and I want to add an entry, and I'll just do like a little ... and then a new time, and then... But at the end of the day, so journaling is kind of a morning routine for me, but the photo journaling element of it is kind of like a nightcap. Like, this is something that I do at night before I'm about to go to bed, because I've taken photos for the day, and, you know, this is where I can kind of curate them and select them, where the context is fresh in my mind. Not only of what I did that day, but what's happening in the individual photos, what made me think to take that photo, or who's in that photo. So typically I'll do the photo journaling portion of my journaling at night, and so I'll have my entries for the day done. And then what I'll do is I will take the photos, just take a little piece of that transparent tape, and just stick them, you know, usually what I'll do is, like, kind of in the section above the line, you know, this line would be here the next morning, but kind of in the section of the day that I am finishing up, I'll put it there, and then you have it, and you can just kind of flip it up and see your description. Second verse, same as the first. A little piece of tape. And what I like about this too is that I tend to, like, kind of move these up into the previous entry more, so I'm not obstructed while I'm writing the next one. Because you can kind of flip them up, obviously, but they tend to kind of fall. So, you know, I like to kind of move them out of the way. Maybe I'll put them in a weird orientation until the next day's entry has started. And then I can kind of put them in their final resting place right above that divider line. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope you found this useful, instructive, inspiring. I hope this is something that you try to pursue and you do it in your own way, that, you know, however works best for you. Until next time, good luck, have fun, and keep on keeping on.